At the time of recording this audio, we don't actually have an update on Thatcher Demko, Vancouver Canucks goaltender who had recently gotten injured in last night's game against the Florida Panthers. However, that does not change the idea that I wanted to talk about here in this video, because what we're doing is we're talking about a trade rumor suggested by Darren Dreger on Sabres Live. I don't know why Darren Dreger was on the Buffalo Sabres program talking about this goaltender and this team, but Editor-in-J, Account for Hockey, went out there and said this. Dreger on the Sabres Live broadcast said, last week he heard from an NHL executive that the LA Kings could take a run at trading for Thatcher Demko later in the season. Now, my immediate instinct upon reading this tweet was, of course they would. Right? I mean, you take a look at the LA Kings and their goaltending situation, you say, Jonathan Quick, he's pretty old. He's probably not going to be sticking around for an extended amount of time. Cal Peterson, we already made a video about him yesterday, but man, has he really fallen off after posting up that .911 save percentage just a few years ago. He had gotten sent down, he was really not great, and that $5 million AAV contract is starting to look like a pretty big thorn in the side of the Kings, but of course, you know, the guy's still in his mid to late 20s. He's kind of got an opportunity here to just rebound after an AHL stint. And so, for Thatcher Demko to be a potential Kings target, it makes more sense to me why he would be their guy rather than anybody else. Mostly because, I mean, Demko is a Vancouver Canuck, meaning that the LA Kings play this guy a lot. They see a lot of his footage, they're in the same time zone, etc., etc., plus the fact that Thatcher Demko himself is from California. He's one of the only NHL goalies, I feel, is from that part of the world. And so, if they wanted to go out there and get the hometown service for the fans, say, hey, we got a new guy, he's from here, then why not go out there and get Thatcher? Although I will say, I'm not actually too sure if that's 100% correct. There are 3 California teams, San Jose, Anaheim, and LA, and Demko happens to be from San Diego, so I don't know the dynamic of California teams and California cities, if it's like, oh, Thatcher Demko is from San Diego, which means he could yeet off to San Jose because we don't want him here in LA. I don't know, it's kind of like that for Edmonton and Calgary, I know that for sure, but not too sure if it's the same in San Jose versus San Diego versus LA versus Anaheim, whatever. But either way, this is an interesting idea that I wanted to bring up here on the YouTube channel because it's one that I feel like kind of got shut down with yesterday's injury. Now, just for the update, I mean, at the time of recording this audio, there has not been any sort of an update on Demko and the Canucks. Instead, we do have Colin Delia, who is at the regular Canucks practice, which is not a good sign for anybody looking for a speedy recovery. But then again, based off the body language of what Demko was doing last night when he was pulled off the ice, he did not look like a happy camper in the slightest, not putting any pressure on that right leg of his. So again, we'll wait and see if there's an update about his knee or his waist. People are talking about his injury history, his surgery history, etc., etc. Demko has had to go through a lot the past few years, and he was really good despite all of that. So this right here, this potential new injury aggravated in the Panthers game, this does not really sound like a good thing. But either way, if you wanted to talk about the idea of a Kings trade, I want to discuss what a return could look like. Because obviously the Kings are in a spot where their goaltending is quite fragile at this moment. There is a little bit of a change I feel could be happening in net if you wanted to project where the Kings are going the next few months. But if it's Thatcher Demko, who is at his best one of the best goalies in the entire NHL, somebody that even I was thinking could be a Vezina caliber candidate for this season until he crapped to the bed for the first games that he had played, but Thatcher Demko is a valuable dude. What exactly is the price on that? I'm not sure. Demko right now, if you go over to the contract, he's making a pretty good $5 million AAV till the end of 2026. Now, at this moment in time, that contract kind of sucks. 8.85 save percentage, a .381 goals against. That is not a $5 million goalie. But for every piece of work that Demko has put up last season and the season before that, he pretty much was showing off that he can keep the team in it to win it and really be above and beyond exceptional comparative to the contract. It's only really been this year where he has been kind of down in the dumps. So if you try to go off of the entire other year's worth of resume that Demko has had and you ignore this season, there's probably a lot of value there when you talk about a Demko trade. And of course, when you combine this with the Kings' desire for goaltending, it makes things a lot more interesting. So, when you're thinking about Thatcher Demko as a potential number one starter who is already good enough to be your guy, in most circumstances, of course, disregarding this season's worth of play, that's really valuable. Like, I'm thinking, if the Kings wanted to go out there and make an offer that Alvin has to think about, you're talking about a first-round pick, you're talking about a goaltender coming back, because the Vancouver Canucks probably would not want to go with Colin Daly and Spencer Martin for the rest of their season. Actually, maybe they would if they wanted to go out there and tank, or maybe they just really, really like Spencer Martin. Okay, disregard the goaltender in a Demko trade coming back the other way. Let's talk about Demko, a first-round pick, and maybe another top prospect in there. The Kings have quite a few that I like a lot, and it's definitely one of their pluses as an organization, the amount of young talent that they have at their disposal. But if you go out there and talk about which ones, that's when the conversation starts to open up. I don't know if the Kings are trading away a Byfield. I don't know if they're trading away a Turcotte. I don't know if they're trading away a Tyler Madden, because that guy still exists in their organization. Yeah, I know, I had to mention his name, because it still hurts, doesn't it? But if there is a first and another younger talent going over for Demko, that's kind of what I feel is more in the appropriate range. I feel like some people might say that I'm undervaluing Demko. Oh, he's a number one goalie. Like, he could be a Vezina candidate. What are you talking about, a first and a top prospect? The thing is, goalies are so volatile that, in my opinion, it's really difficult to go out there and nail a solidified price for anybody. Like, Demko right now is a really bad asset because he's not playing well and he's making $5 million a year, and he might not even be able to play. Like, disregarding the injury, his season this year has been bad. And so if the Canucks make a trade for a guy like Demko, right now they're selling low, pretty much. Unless that team is going out there and not really evaluating anything that Demko has had this season and only really basing this trade off of what he's been doing in the past. So, at the same time, what do you do about that? How do you evaluate that sort of discrepancy and you reflect that in the value of a trade? Do you say, okay, well, Demko sucks this year, so we're not going to give more than a second? Or do you say, okay, well, Demko was super good in the bubble playoffs. We can offer you, Alvin, a first and 2 seconds and this top prospect because we know he's an important goalie and he's supposed to be your main guy. I'm not sure. You can talk in the comments on your thoughts about a Demko trade, as well as what the LA Kings might be willing to go out there and offer. If you're a Canucks fan, what do you want the most from the LA Kings in a Demko sort of scenario? And if you're a Kings fan in the flesh, what are your thoughts on the idea of trading for Thatcher Demko yourself? Do you want to do this? Do you still believe in Cal Peterson? Do you think that there are other better options on the trade market that would cost you less? Is Demko even the right move because of how much he's struggled this season? Darren Dreger went out there and talked about this on Sabres Live of all places, but I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Thatcher Demko, yay or nay in LA? Furthermore, if it is a trade that you're looking at, what do you think is the most appropriate price for this type of a player? You disregard this season, you include this season, whatever. What do you feel comfortable giving up in a Demko trade? Is it that Quinton Byfield? Because if it is, I feel a lot more compelled to start thinking about that, man. Like, young talent. The Canucks don't have any of that, and LA has a lot. So, I don't know, one of those, maybe a Jordan Spence on the right side. Oh man, I'm really starting to lick my lips at the prospect of any of these guys coming over to Vancouver in their organization because of their lack of young talent. But, talk in the comments on your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.